Hello and welcome to week 12 of Let's Talk Football with Sha'Niece and friends. I'm Sha'Niece, and as you can see, I have none of my friends with me. And I want to start by saying I am very nervous to do this by myself. I've been podcasting for a while and I've generally done this with other people. The idea of literally just talking to myself and looking at a camera with no conversation is very, very nerve wracking for me because that's just something I don't necessarily feel comfortable doing, though I've seen many people do it. And so I decided after my guests, one did not show up, even though they were supposed to, and another one I haven't heard back. Um, I decided I was like nervous. I was like, oh my gosh, should I do it by myself or do I just cancel it and, shoot for next week? And I decided that I'm going to shoot it by myself, mostly because it's my podcast. And one thing I wanted to do is be as consistent as possible. And through these 12 weeks of football, one week I didn't have a voice and I literally just couldn't do it. And the second week was a similar situation where folks backed out. And so actually just one person backed out and I just decided to cancel it altogether. But I work really hard and I'm really passionate about doing this podcast. I'm passionate about football. I love talking about football. And so instead of trying to text folks and call and trying to get someone else to do it, I'm doing something that makes me uncomfortable and a little nervous. And I decided to talk football to you or anyone who's listening, whether it's on the live stream or the podcast. And so that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk football. I have a lot to say. I take time to prep notes and have stats and all those things and pull things up. And so I decided I'm going to do it regardless of who shows up. And here we go. We are talking week 12 football. And I'm excited to talk about it because, again, there were a lot of very interesting games and interesting things happening this week in football. And actually, probably the good thing about being on here by myself is that I don't have to deal with people being long-winded. I can say everything I want to say and probably get through all of my segments within an hour. So we're going to start with this week's matchups. So one thing that I'm super excited about this week is that the NFC East standings have changed, and they have changed in favor of my New York Football Giants, in that we are no longer in the basement of the NFC East, which is not saying much, being that we've only won 4 games. But my Giants have moved up to the 3 spot with our win over New England last week. But the way I decided to do my notes this week is I'm starting from the top. And the reason why I'm starting from the top is because Philadelphia is now 10-1. And I'm starting from the top because the way that Philadelphia just won, to me, was nothing short of amazing. One thing about football and even why I did this podcast is because I love football and I love good games. Blowouts are, blowout wins aren't really all that fun unless it's Dallas getting beat by San Francisco, where you just sit back and laugh. But blowouts are just no fun in football. Also, blowout wins against bad teams or not equally matched opponents, it's just not fun. Like when I watch football, you want to see a good game, especially when you're talking about division games. You want to see a good matchup. Even if it's a division game and it's low scoring, similar to what we saw last night with the Vikings and the Bears, which are 2 teams that just aren't really that good. It's always good to see games that come down to the wire, that come down to a kicker, specifically in the Philadelphia Buffalo game, that comes down to that final drive. Who has the ball in their hands last? And what are they going to do? I didn't get a chance to watch the entire Philly game. I actually listened to most of it because I had prior obligations. And so I was listening to it on NFL Network and even following along with it on my phone at the event I was at. And I remember watching and thinking to myself, like, ooh, Philly, and we knew this was going to be Philly had one of the toughest schedules as far as strength of schedules. They're going up against Buffalo, where Philly could have lost that game and it would not waver really anything for them. Philadelphia was already 9-1 going into that game. They had already beat Kansas City. Buffalo, we knew was going to be a tough game, whether it was in Philadelphia or in Buffalo, just because of the weather in those areas. Buffalo is a team that has a lot to lose. They're in a tougher division, and their fight is going to be, in my mind, I'm like, well, Buffalo's fight is going to be a heck of a lot tougher against Philly than Philadelphia fighting for Buffalo, because Philadelphia is going to the playoffs. They're a playoff team. Philadelphia could literally lose every single game down the stretch, and they would still be a playoff team, right? Like they I don't even know. I was looking even at some of the standings, like, oh yeah, Philadelphia hasn't clinched, the playoffs. And I know it's because technically there's still a lot of parity, but I think the eye test tells us Philadelphia is going to the playoffs regardless. Buffalo has to win every game. Buffalo has very little room to lose games, even with Cincinnati losing Joe Burrow, and they're pretty much definitely out of the playoffs. The Browns losing Deshaun Watson, which they weren't really winning with him, so he hasn't been playing most of the season. So, the Browns, we knew they were kind of out of it, right? But Buffalo is a really good team with this, generational QB that they have, and they're supposed to win. So there was so much more riding for Buffalo, and they played a very tough game. To kick a 60-yard field goal and it goes through with room to spare, I will say specifically outside, I could understand how Buffalo fans felt as a Giants fan, because that happened to us last year against the Vikings, a 61-yard field goal, and that was inside, and it was made with room to go, and that crushing loss. So I understand how Buffalo fans feel right now, or felt in a sense, but they were going into overtime. It's not like that was the game-winning field goal. But for Philly to drive down the field the way that they did was, at the end of the game, not only did Jalen show by running the football in, and I know there was stuff about the refs and all that stuff. Obviously, like I said, I was listening to it, so I didn't see. Despite the refs, and I've gone on rants about the refs miss it every week. There are questionable calls by the refs, but Philly also got calls that pushed them back enough where many teams would have folded. But to watch that last drive, to listen to it, then to watch it later, one of the first things that came to mind is, who can beat Philly? Like, who can literally beat Philadelphia? I was so stunned, because to be at 10-0, to be a team that looks more defeated than their record would show, they're just still good. A team that many people are saying they don't have an identity. They're just still good. Most importantly, Philly is going to find a way to win, regardless of where they are, how they do it, whether they're up by a lot or not. I think a lot of commentators and people talking about, oh, well, Philly hasn't, have they really blown anyone out? Yes, I've looked at their schedule. Like, they have some blowout wins, but it doesn't matter. To me, Philly having a bunch of blowout wins against bad teams, Dallas, doesn't determine whether you're a good team. And when we look at Philly, and the reason why we say Philly is absolutely, hands down, undoubtedly a Super Bowl contender, is because of the game they played against Buffalo. And I look at it in two buckets. Philly has 4 tough games ahead of them. We knew that. They had Kansas City, Buffalo. They'll have San Francisco and Dallas again. They've already beat Dallas by 5. And whether they split with Dallas or not, it really won't matter. And it won't validate that Dallas is a better team, personally, in my opinion. And I'll get to that a little later. But of these 4 really tough opponents that they're going to have, who have over 500 records, they beat 2 of them in a way where, over these past 2 days, I've been trying to figure figure out and find faults. I've listened to commentators to figure out what is the weakness Philly has. What's the chink in their armor? What is something that's going to catch up to them, or the way they're playing, it'll catch up to them and it's just not going to work. And I look at the last two games, and my answer to that, and after all this time of reflection, the answer truly is nothing. They played the Super Bowl contend. I mean, Kansas City is a Super Bowl contender in the AFC. They played one of the best quarterbacks, period. An MVP quarterback in Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City, in the outdoors, which Philly plays a lot of outdoor games, so that's not a factor. But like, you beat the best, and you beat them soundly. And on the other end of it with Buffalo, you play a desperate Buffalo team that knows they haven't played that great, but had a big win last week, and they need these big wins specifically in such a tough division and a tough conference. And you beat them in overtime in a just amazing game-winning drive when you were down. To me, when you look at who you beat in Kansas City and how you beat Buffalo, where is the flaw in Philadelphia? How do you watch that game and not think that not only could they go to the Super Bowl, and very much so probably will, but that they win? Because they have shown to me in those two games, they have proven to me pretty much everything I need to see. There's really nothing else I really need to see from Philadelphia. And yes, we said 4 tough teams. So you now have San Francisco coming up and you have Dallas coming up. Here are the 3 scenarios. They lose both games. They lose San Francisco and Dallas. Philly still is going to the playoffs. They still have tons of games left and opportunity to still keep the number 1 seed and get the number 1 seed, which despite, because again, I think many Dallas fans, and some of what I've seen is people think like, oh, well, if Dallas wins, Dallas is Super Bowl contenders and they've proven themselves, and like Dallas still got a bunch more games. And again, 1 Dallas loss in that stretch, and Philly goes back to pretty much being able to stay at the number 1 spot. At least in the division in the NFC East, they have a good chance of being able to stay at the number 1 spot, especially after they more than likely sweep the Giants. And again, Dallas would have to be perfect down the stretch, which if there's any team I think probably won't be perfect down the stretch, it would be Dallas, right? Like, they're more than likely going to win. I mean, they're more than likely going to lose 1, maybe even 2 more games. So Philly would still be number 1 division and more than likely be either the 1 or 2 spot in the NFC as far as playoffs. So that's if they lose. If they split, they stay exactly where they are. Because again, down the stretch for Philly, it's legitimately a cakewalk. And if they win both of those games, if Philly beats San Francisco and they beat Dallas, I don't see how any team in the NFC can look at Philly and think to themselves, yeah, so see, we have a really great chance of going to the Super Bowl and winning. Even if you're San Francisco. If they beat San Francisco and beat Dallas, knowing that the rest of their games are Seattle, my New York Giants, and the Cardinals, like, if anything, Philly is a team you can go ahead and start sizing up ranks for. I don't think there's any team in the NFC, specifically the top 4 contenders for the playoffs. So for me, that's Philly, Dallas, Detroit, and San Francisco. I think after the 2 games we've just seen, you have to be nervous about going into any game with Philly, because they'll win if they're down. They'll win if they're ahead. They'll win in overtime. They will win by any means necessary. So I'm pretty sure San Francisco watched that game, Kyle Shanahan, and they're all like, D'Amico Ryans, not D'Amico Ryan, sorry, Steve Wilkes. I'm 90% sure they're all looking at that game being like, okay, San Francisco's game plan has to be, we have to get ahead and we have to stay ahead. This is a game we have to go 110% from the start to the very finish. And the last thing we're doing is letting Jalen have the ball in his hands. Even if there is a minute left on the clock and you guys are in Philly is down by 10, you don't want Jalen to have the ball because Philly will figure out a way. And I think San Francisco does have the team and the squad to be able to do that, which is literally say our game plan is to score, is to ride Philly, ride their defense, continue to score, and don't stop scoring. Every time we have the ball, we will drive down the field, clock management, run that clock in every single quarter. You can't say, oh, we'll run the clock in fourth. No, you better run the clock all game long. The sooner you get that game over with the most points as possible with Philadelphia, the better your chances are to win that game. And if you're Dallas watching, you have to sit here and think to yourself, you just played, Dak Prescott had his best statistical game against Philly and lost by 5. If you're Dallas watching, you have to think to yourself, how can we have a better statistical game and score more and keep ourselves in a tight game with Philadelphia in our house when there will literally be no elements that are going against Philly when Philly knows how to play very well in bad elements, but you're inside. So there's nothing that can hinder Philly from being amazing. And at the end of the day, they have Jalen Hurts and you have Dak Prescott. I'll take Jalen Hurts any day of the week over Dak Prescott in that type of situation. But I think those two teams have to have a very solid game plan. And even with that game plan, they better have a plan B because Philly just wins. They win. They have the best record in the NFL and they have played the best teams in the NFL. They've played some of the best quarterbacks in the league and they've won. And even on the AFC side, I think if Kansas City sees Philly again in the big game, which is definitely plausible, they have to realize that Patrick Mahomes will not be the best quarterback that steps out on that field. If they go to the Super Bowl, Jalen Hurts will be. And I'm not talking overall. We know Patrick Mahomes has been in the league longer. We know he's an absolutely amazing out of this world quarterback. I'm not ever going to take that away from Patrick Mahomes. But if he were to go on the field, if this were the Super Bowl and both of them go back to it and they both match up, Patrick Mahomes in anyone has to look at it and say, Patrick Mahomes not the best and the only good quarterback on that field. It's also going to be Jalen Hurts just because of how they've been able to win and in the way that they've been winning. So in the last part about Philly, one thing that also came to mind was their team, and this is the last scary part, is there a team that doesn't think their record is reflective of how good they are? I watched Jalen Hurts afterwards and even during the game towards the end, and even the press conference, and they look like a team that lost. The past 2 games he's gone to the podium and he looks like a team. He looks like a QB that just lost. He looks like a team. They look like a team that lost because they feel they can actually be better. They don't think that they're as good as their record. And that to me is a mentality that's very interesting for a team with a 10-1 record, because what happens when they start playing well first and second half, and they also start to believe in themselves that they're as good as their record. And the reason why I'll use that as a really great segue is because we'll go to Dallas, the number 2 team in the NFC East. And they have an 8, I think they were 8-3, 7, they're 8-3 record. They're a team that believes they're better than their record. Oh, well, look at who decided to show up. Hold on. Well, I got Torn who decided to show up. I thought I was going to do the show by myself. Got my little confidence all up. Hello, welcome.
Hey,
I literally did this whole little monologue about me doing the show by myself because folks ain't show up. And I just did this whole rant about Philly. As I was about to move on, Dallas had the best segue, and you showed up and just stole my thunder, stole my shine.
well, clearly I'm right on time. Good evening,
Yeah,
everybody.
I guess. Well, look, I did my rant about Philly. And just in short, I said it to you when you called after the game, which was I, I don't know how you can beat Philly. There's no chink in the armor. I don't see the weak spot. And one of the last things I just said before I was moving into Dallas is that Philly's a team that seems to not believe they're as good as their record. They're 10-1. But I watched Jalen Hurts, his press conference at the end, and you see them as they're walking off. You even see them after, but right before they're going into overtime after the kick. And it's like, it's a team that looks like they lost. I don't think Philly believes they're as good as their record because they keep saying we have more to improve on. There are things we need to get better at, which is true. They were a little flat in certain parts of the game, but they're 10-1 and they have the best record in the NFL by 2 games from everybody. There is no 9-1 team or 9-2. Philadelphia has the best record in the entire NFL by a few steps. So, Torrance, since you're here, our resident Philly fan, go ahead and talk about your team.
Well, I mean, with that kind of segue, I mean, it's pretty. For us, we feel pretty good, pretty reminiscent, um, in the sense that we. It feels a lot like our 2018 year in a few ways. First, nobody believed in us, and we were kind of off shot then. And similar this year. That year we started, I believe, 8-2, and we were 8-2. Well, we were 8-1 this year, but it was similar. And we're just winning. It's not pretty, but we are winning. Nobody wants to play us because we won't give up. We're the best second half team in the league. Those things have been said. But what I'll add to it is this. Jalen Hurts and them were absolutely right. I mean, who in the league woke up with one of their star O linemen saying, "Oh, my groin hurts,"
Yeah.
and then not playing? We've got our tight end, like our legit tight end, who fractured their forearm, had surgery, and is healing. Then we've got our star wide receiver, who's first conversation MVP player who didn't have a good game. All that in short, going up against a team that had their number one receiver show up, whose quarterback played lights out. So I think, and we still won. So we are feeling confident, but we also are feeling rested. Us Eagles up on the nest have already been talking about, the rest of the league is still talking their jazz. For us, our thing is make the playoffs, clinch a number one seed if possible, clinch the number one seed, get the bye, get home field, hopefully move on, win a Super Bowl. But even before that, there's a lot of Niners fans who are probably going to be sick all week because we really just don't care about trash talk. We could care less if we lose this game. We're still going to be number one.
I said that earlier. Yeah.
We're more worried about beating our foe, who, if we were 1-10, we would still want to beat, which is Dallas.
And just FYI, I want to add into that when you talk about Buffalo, you guys played a Buffalo team that's very desperate. They're not a lock for the playoffs.
No,
Buffalo got a little edge when Burrow went out and he's out for the season, but that gave them a little life, like, whew, okay, we're still alive. But they needed that game.
No, they did.
They need every win.
And I think for us, folks were talking about a 6-game stretch, and I think I saw something on, the early reports today. They quantified the 6-game stretch, including like Seattle, and I'm like, okay, but I'm not,
because at the beginning of that 6-game stretch, Seattle was
Well, right. But
Given the
I'm
context,
backing.
Seattle was in that. Yes.
I mean, they were, but I'm backing it. I always like no. I'm backing that up. See, because we beat the Dolphins. Like that's the beginning of my 6 game stretch. Like
Okay. Yeah.
Dolphins are a better team than the Seahawks. We beat the Dolphins.
Yes.
We beat the Cowboys. We beat the Chiefs. We beat the Bills. Right. And now we're going to, have to play the Niners and the Cowboys again. But through that stretch, I mean, 5 wins, that's, pretty important.
Absolutely.
I think we're trying to get healthy. I think for us, we have a lot of realization. Like we are not looking through rose-colored glasses. We see the writing on the wall. We have a bunch of perennial all-stars and first ballot Hall of Famers who are coming towards the end of their career. Fletcher Cox ain't playing
Absolutely.
forever. Neither is Lane Johnson. Neither is
Absolutely.
Kelsey. Neither is.
Right. I mean, to be honest, if you guys get the Super Bowl
Oh,
again
we
and
win
the
the Super
win,
Bowl this
a
year.
lot of them dudes are be like,
Oh,
I'm done. Like,
right,
got my ring. I know I'm going into Hall of Fame first ballot.
right,
You know,
right.
they're
But
not
I
sticking
believe,
around.
I believe in Jeffrey Lurie and them in the sense that right now their big pressure is let's build dynamic team. Let's build a team that can play. I like the way that we have went out and shopped around because it isn't always pretty, but we're bringing in people who are role players, who play good ball, who do what they need to do, and it's efficient. And the reality is we've got a lot of help
Yeah.
from our division, from our conference, excuse me, because honestly, it's us and the Cowboys. No offense, but at
In
this
San Francisco.
no, I'm talking about in our. I'm sorry, I said
In the
conference in the division. It's
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's us and the Cowboys. And the Giants can definitely play, or the Redskins could definitely play. Well, for us, the Giants could play. Spoiler alert, but
Mhm.
outside of that, um, but you could also have a case. I guess this would be more. I just specifically would make sense for you and me. You could legitimately have another instance where you have kind of like what happened to our alma mater, like, oh, we don't make the bowl game, but our record is way better than the team who made the bowl game. So even if we split with Dallas and Dallas ends up winning the division, we'll make the playoffs. And that, home field matters, but us being in the game like makes us dynamic. But I don't even think it'll get that far. I think,
I was gonna say, here's my only rebuttal to you, a fan who from me who's not, is even if, like I said it earlier, which is even if Philly were to lose against San Francisco and Dallas, they are
it
still
still don't
very much in contention for the 1 seed
yeah,
because
yeah,
San Francisco has a few more tough games, and Dallas is going to be on their toughest stretch. Hell, this is
yeah,
everything Dallas has done up to this point, and
yeah.
and they play Seattle, and everybody's like, oh, they'll probably just see it. They'll roll over Seattle. Rolling over Seattle, personally, I don't see that. Um, but what I do think when it comes to Dallas is number one, they still have they have their toughest games coming up, and number two, Dallas in the playoffs is not a threat. They've never Dallas over the past, what, 28, 29 years now at this point, when have they ever been a threat in the playoffs? Let alone
Well,
with
I
Dak
mean,
Prescott. Like,
they
no.
they play tough. This may be their year, who knows? But I will say this: they, yeah, their toughest stretch is towards the end. I mean, they play us from us on. I mean, they do have to play Seattle. They play Seattle Thursday,
Yep.
and then they got to play us, then Buffalo, then Miami, then Detroit. But
And those last three teams, I already said it a few weeks ago, which is Dallas's their last 5 games are all going to be playoff contenders. Um, and I did have Washington in there because Washington, before that game, they were teetering. It was like, y'all got to start winning, and you got to start winning now because the NFC South is so trash. The NFC North isn't that competitive as well, right? So Washington very much so was still in the playoff mix. They were in the hunt. They just completely fell, I mean, flat. But Dallas, again, I'm not discounting the Seahawks yet. And in the same way I didn't discount Dallas, which I mean Washington, which is that's a playoff team. The Seahawks are looking to be in
No,
the
I
playoffs.
mean they are, and the way we look at it is this: pull our schedule up, you look at it. We pound for pound have the toughest schedule in the NFL for two reasons.
Yeah, you do. You guys do.
Right. Number one, we're playing the Super Bowl champions on Monday night, and we're not running from it. But number two, we played legitimately in gauntlet fashion,
Yes.
in succinct order,
Yes.
every single candidate to come out of the NFC. Like we played
Literally.
the Cowboys, then the Chiefs, then the Niners. Like we're playing. We're
There's your schedule. Let me make it bigger. But no, I mean you're 100% right. Let me make that a little bit
so for
bigger.
us, a
I'll
lot of
start
that.
here.
So for us, a lot of that, that talk or that rhetoric about, oh, I don't know, and da da da. I'm like, look, y'all aren't measuring. Like we're not using the same measuring cups. Like we're going out and we're winning games. We can actually say, yeah, we got a dirty win, but it's a win. Why? Because we're playing the Bills. We're playing
Yeah.
the Chiefs. We're playing the Cowboys. You can't say, you can't be sitting there playing the Cardinals and the Panthers and everything else and then saying, oh,
And that's another thing. That's why I hate it when people are like, oh, I mean, look at these wins. It's not like they're blowing teams out. My thing is like, who's blown out the Chiefs?
yeah,
Like, who's out here blowing out the Chiefs every week? The Chiefs have 3 losses.
yeah,
Those weren't all like, oh yeah, they had these crazy devastating loss. No, like
right.
look, like you said, Buffalo. Look at how Buffalo lost their first game. Like that, those are things that generally don't happen every game, right? Like it's not like you said, and I do agree when people are saying that, and I'm like, bro, look at who they're playing. Look
Yeah,
at who
and
they're playing.
it's self-explanatory in the sense that outside of the Washington game, um, the teams that were not supposed to beat us and lost didn't score more than 20 points.
Yeah.
Like, New England scores
Look
20.
at that. You
You
know,
know,
the one loss y'all have against the Jets, which hell, everyone was shocked. I think the Jets are still shocked that they won. But
that,
also
that
look at
that's
what the Jets are now.
that's that loss, once again, looking back, that loss is more about Hurts trying to figure out if he's really, really hurt or just a little hurt and trying to play. And because at times we do run this, I don't know. Sometimes our play calling with the quarterback draw is suspect to me in the choice of when it comes in repetition of play calling. But when you gotta have it, it's something to be said when you go out and it's like, I gotta have it. We gotta have
Yeah.
it play. And he produces. But he's got a good crew around him. There's a lot of selfless people. So, we're excited. I think yeah, we're excited. But then we play y'all twice. And I don't
Yeah. Which
but
again, y'all can take
usually
if there's a
usually
way we could just mail you the win, like we don't have to actually go out there. Like y'all can just take the
well,
win.
we're actually a lot happier now because for for as long as I can remember, our schedule always had the Cowboys, I guess early to mid year. And then we always played the Cowboys the last game, usually like either Christmas or New Year's, whatever. This year, we play the Cowboys so early, like it's just uncommon for
Yeah.
us to play. Like we're playing the Giants, and then the year y'all are having, that's almost like I told somebody today. I told another Eagles fan today. I'm like, shit, we may not. Giants, especially in that second game, maybe the first one, if I were a Giants fan, I wouldn't even go because you may not even see Hurts. Depending upon how the year, you may not
No, I
even.
was gonna say no. The last, so I mean, the last game of the season is against you guys, and again, according to where you guys end up, right? So you have these last two tougher opponents, if you will. Um, you then have Seattle, us, the Cardinals, and then us again. To be honest, once you get past Seattle, right? Like whether you split San Francisco Cowboys, if you win both of those games, go into Seattle and win. I mean, the Giants, Cardinals, Giants, I wouldn't be seeing Hurts in the second half, period. I would play my starters first half if I was Philly, right? If you're Philly and you're literally looking at what, maybe a at 12 and maybe 12-2 or 13-1. I mean 13-2 or something like that. Maybe 12-3. By the
Well,
time you get to the Giants,
what,
I'm just and again, this is as I'm saying this very much so objectively. You get past San Francisco and Dallas with wins, right? Say y'all literally go through this 5-6 game stretch and win it all. You get to Seattle, you still play everyone, right? You play everyone cautiously. By the time you get to New York and the Cardinals, I'm not playing everybody full game. I'm just not. There's no way, especially the last two games. I'm not playing Jalen or any of my starters after the
nah,
first half.
you won't. You may, yeah, nah, you may not see that shit. If we, when we play Dallas in Dallas, we come out with the win. That's it. Because for us,
It is.
for us, that's the division, regardless.
Right.
And it's kind of like but we usually split. I mean, it's rare that one team wins the year.
But
So
let's think objectively. And you're right. I know that that's always the kind of thing. I mean, I think Cowboys fans, Giants fans, Washington fans were like, "Oh yeah, well they'll probably split." I think splitting is what everyone kind of technically expects. But when I look at both teams objectively on paper and what I have, my eye test, even after we've played Dallas twice, my eye test tells me I could literally see Philly, I could see Philly walking away with the
I
entire
mean,
division and sweeping.
I could, but Dak and them are playing good ball. Their defense is nothing to play around with. Deron Bland and them, and Michael Parsons and all them. And the thing
But I
is,
think Dallas has put too much out on film.
maybe, but you also got
But you got to think about it. They're playing really well. They're playing bad teams, and they're doing stuff that is like that's pretty
no, no,
good.
no, no, that's true. But you got to also keep in mind the environments. There
Yeah,
aren't many places in America where it matters, like legitimately, outside of us two. I'm trying to think. Oh, and the Chiefs. I mean, literally, nobody wants to play in Arrowhead.
hmm
Nobody wants to play in Philly, and
and
nobody
nobody
wants
wants
to
to play in
play in
Lambeau.
Dallas.
Lambeau's another place. Nobody wants to
Yeah.
play there, especially not in the
So,
winter.
like, because when you're going into Dallas, it's just an aura around the Cowboys and everything. Philly is legitimately a dangerous place. Like my favorite new meme or meme video that came out of our win last week was the little boy.
Oh yeah, who walked up to the Bills fan? Yeah,
That's
I was
that's
like, ooh,
Like that's our fan base. Like we boo Santa, we threw snowballs at Santa. Like we are in your face. And so when we go to Dallas, it's different because they are likewise. We like to say we're aggressive, and then we like to say they're brainwashed. So it's like it's just a different environment. And the Cowboys play lights out at home. It's different
yes,
when they
yeah.
get on the road. It
But
gets
see, to me, that's the only advantage they have. Because like I said, right before you came on, I wanted to talk about Dallas, and we can kind of segue into it. But when I was looking at it and I thought about this game, the game that comes up in 2 weeks, if Philly walks away with the win from San Francisco, the only advantage that Dallas can actually hold on to is the fact that they win at home. That's
well,
the
well
only thing they could go in there with it.
now. I didn't think about it till just now, but no, I mean it's important. If we win in San Francisco, I mean that's a tiebreaker. That's going to be important because it then goes to who play who and all that. So it's important to play every game
Absolutely.
in a way that matters. But they lost to San Francisco as well. So if we
Exactly.
lose to San Francisco and then we lose to them, but we don't lose by what they lost by, it's just so many different factors. But I
I mean,
think,
I hear you, and I feel it's giving off. I'm trying to be a humble Philly fan, which I don't even know when this started, specifically with Philly folks. But I let's talk about Dallas. Because you talked about it. You talked about Dallas, their win record at home. I mean, they just do, right? They feel comfortable at home, I guess, because they're a few minutes away from the stadium. They have this great record at home. Their record, I think that Dallas believes they're better than their record. There's a lot of chest puffing up. Like I saw some of the because the page for this show, I follow all four teams. And so I've seen the Dallas social media specifically. I was actually kind of like, really, after the Carolina game, they were just like, yeah, and I'm like, bro, y'all just it's Carolina. Like
Well,
it's Carolina.
they have a tradition though. They pump up every win. I think
And
Dak.
I think that here's the thing: there's nothing wrong with being excited about a win. I will never take that away. My Giants have won 4 games total. Tommy DeVito has won more games this year than Daniel Jones, and he's played less, right? Like,
He
I,
does.
I am not against puffing up your chest against a win.
That's
Not at all.
that's
But
quarterback.
that would be like the game that Central played against Winston-Salem State. We drug y'all. We're supposed to, right? Like nobody's looking at Central like, oh, yeah, like nobody was sitting here gloating crazy about it's Winston. We were supposed to win that game. It's set up for us to win. Dallas, the way, like I said, some of the stuff I saw on social media, I was like, bro, it's Carolina. Like, it's Carolina. Nobody outside of Bryce Young, nobody can name 2 other players on that team. Like, they're a bad organization. But yeah, I mean, that to me is is where Dallas comes in, specifically their stretch and in the games that they have coming up. Because, like you said, they play Seattle, they play you guys, which was a tough game. And again, I want to really very much so put out Dak's best statistical game was against you guys, and y'all still beat them.
Well,
Um,
that's a commonality that we're seeing when people have to take into effect how much of a giant killer Hurts is and the Eagles are. Because Josh Allen was he legitimately, if you watch the game, I mean, I have him in fantasy. He was the best player on the field,
yeah. Oh, they did the stats side by side,
and
time of possession,
he still lost.
yards. I'm like, there's
He's-
no reason.
Which is which in that light, I definitely do agree with everyone. You're seeing Tom Brady-esque style victories where
Yes.
you're just like, we haven't seen somebody like that since Tom, where you're down by a margin and
And
you're
it doesn't
sitting on the
matter.
sideline. You just like,
It
okay,
doesn't matter.
grab
That
my.
was one thing I will say about Tom Brady. You're right. It did not matter what
It
the score
doesn't
was.
matter. Like,
It never mattered. It was like, does Tom Brady want to win? Because if he does, he gonna win.
he just calm and cool, and this is kind of like when you have somebody like that, it changes the game. Dallas was close to winning, had a couple opportunities to win, it didn't go their way, and I'm not. We're not remiss, like I'm one of those Philly fans that I talk my trash about the Cowboys, but I do respect they have a legitimate, top ranked defense,
Yeah,
and their offense has the ability to score. I think our defense has the ability to stop them. And if we don't do right, vice versa. So it always makes for a good matchup.
absolutely. I mean, the next 2 games, I definitely am tuned. I think me, like any football fan, I know where I'll be Sunday at 4:25. And I'll be watching Fox. I'm watching that game. That game, because like you said, I mean, you're talking about 2 weeks ago, Philly played in the Super Bowl, right? And against who's more than likely going to be back in the Super Bowl, if not this year, years to come. Like we know what Kansas City is with Patrick Mahomes. And then now we're about to see the rematch of the NFC Championship game, which, again, in my mind, we're possibly seeing last year's NFC Championship game against what would potentially be this year's NFC Championship game. Because I do have San Francisco and Philly in the NFC Championship game this year. And if for any reason either team gets knocked off, any other team in contention is going to lose. So if for some odd reason San Francisco gets upset, Philly's in it, Philly's probably going to win. And vice versa. If some odd reason Philly gets knocked off, San Francisco goes in. I think San Francisco is going to win it all. To me, I think the NFC is a little stronger than the AFC this year, even though the AFC is loaded. Um, but I think when it comes to Dallas, I think that yes, they can split. Yes, it's any given Sunday. But I just think when I look at the strength of schedule, I just don't see what everyone else sees in Dallas's greatness. I don't Even today, I'm hearing people talk about Dak being an MVP candidate, and I'm like, you
I mean,
cannot be serious.
he's putting up amazing numbers, and the reality why they're saying that is because he is a good reason why they are propelling a win. However, the defense carries them in many instances because their defense has, like, I think a stat that
Then
goes.
you can't say he's an MVP if you're talking about his defense.
I mean, I think
People, I just tweeted this earlier. People are looking at the MVP race because it has primarily been a quarterback race and stats and numbers matter. When we're talking about MVP, the thing people are forgetting is the valuable part. And to me, if you can say that, well, Dallas has been good because their defense has been doing it, well, then Dak is not the most valuable player on that team. And we even saw last year and the year before, Dallas has not had Dak for spurts and still been good. You wouldn't say Brock Purdy is MVP candidate because of his numbers. We all know he's not the most valuable player because his whole team is so good that they can carry damn near any quarterback, right? Bryce Young could be in San Francisco, and it's like, oh, okay, well, they're still just as good. To me, Dak isn't going to be the most valuable player of the Cowboys because if he's not there, and like you said, their defense, you mentioned other aspects of it. You can't sit here and again, unless you want to make it a stats QB award, sure. But you can't say most valuable player and then start mentioning other reasons why they've won and he's had these great numbers. Then that means he's not the most valuable player on the team.
I see your point, but you do have to. It is a team sport at the end of the day,
Yeah.
because there's nobody realistically then that will win MVP. Because even if you say, "Oh, well, Russell, that defense has turned it around and is giving him some support," Jalen Hurts has that defense behind him.
But
Pat,
Jalen Hurts is making, again, that drive. Jalen Hurts is making plays. He's putting together drives that make him one of the most valuable players
well,
on that team.
well,
I mean, they've talked
that's
about
true. That's true. But and this is where he has to continue to get better. That's true to a point, but it's also self-inflicted, right? Like
it.
we
Mhm.
don't want to be coming out of half down every game.
Yeah.
We
Yes.
are down, so then Jalen looks magnificent because he is willing, dragging the team over the finish line. So you also have to take that in
But
perspective.
isn't that what Patrick Mahomes is doing?
Um, at times, yeah, but Patty and them have the losses they had because they weren't scoring in the second half. Then they turned that around in this last game. The
So
thing about
here's the last thing I want to add to that before you go on really quickly. To me, that's where Philly becomes scary. Because, like you just said, with Kansas City, which is a great team, we know they're Super Bowl contenders. We know they have one of the greatest quarterbacks in the league. Because they turned it, they finally switched it on. And like you said, what we saw, what Kansas City just did with the Raiders, to me, that was like, oh shoot, they turned it on.
Mhm.
And this can be scary, especially the fact that they're turning it on later in the season. They're going to make the run that they normally do because now they're starting to fire on all cylinders. To me, I look at it, what if this San Francisco game is that for Philly, where Philly turns it on?
I mean, if
Because
we
my thing is, if you're winning in manners where you don't even think you're having good games and you're not playing your best, what happens when Philly is like, it clicked for us?
well, when you turn it on, when you turn it on, that's when you see, and we're gonna see because the thing about us is, last year we were yay shy of setting the all-time NFL record for sacks in a season. We don't have any problem reaching out and touching a quarterback. My thing with Brock Purdy is this: is Brock Purdy a good quarterback? From what I've seen so far, yeah.
Good, yes.
Can anybody with an arm and some IQ come in and potentially win games with the firepower San Francisco has? Yes.
Absolutely.
When
Absolutely.
you
There,
when
I
you
cannot think of any quarterback right now, including Daniel Jones, who, if they were not in San Francisco, would look amazing. You know what I'm saying? Like, think
yeah,
about what Brock Purdy has done in the system that he's in. Again, Bryce Young would look like a superstar. Daniel Jones would look like a
he's
superstar. Like, there's,
only he's only doing a lot of that, in my opinion, because of
yeah.
who he has.
Yeah.
And you know, and
And he
that's
has to.
and that's apparent because if you look at their stretch, you know, that 3-game losing streak, they played the
One
back
of which wasn't even his fault. They
right.
actually got that drive down to get the field goal for the win.
They had the Bengals, who are still finding their way, but are not a slouch. They had the Browns, who they had the Bengals. Then they had Minnesota going backwards. But then they had the Browns, and the Browns for me was the most telling.
No, the Browns was the first
Yeah,
one. The Browns was the first
yeah,
one
going backwards. Yeah,
where they had that like I said, it was the field goal, the missed
right.
field goal that lost them the game. So again, Brock Purdy put
Uh,
together a drive to get them in, and I think it was what, a 30-yard field goal. Like that's something a
right,
kicker should be
right,
making.
right. It is. I'm going backwards on purpose, like the most
Oh, okay.
because the Browns game was the most telling because you because the Browns have of the
You have a good
3,
defense.
yeah, they have a defense.
Yes.
And they Myles Garrett and them were touching Brock Purdy, and you could his whole demeanor,
Yeah.
everything changed. It was
Yeah.
almost like,
'Cause he was like, "Oh, this
yeah,
feels like Philly again." Like,
yeah,
wait a
I'm not
minute.
right. Like I'm not sure anymore. And so I think we'll definitely do that,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
you know, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and so the last two, my Giants, I, I'm I'm a very reluctant gloat about the win that we got against New England because we actually have always beat New England. We beat New England quite often, and have a really good record against New England. So I looked at that New England game as a win regardless. But to be down to our third string QB who he's playing fairly good. I can't even say he's playing really good. And it was an ugly win. It was again a missed field goal win, but to have two back to back wins going into a bye, I'm excited because I'm always going to be happy when my Giants win. But where that also puts us is in a really precarious place because we are also losing our standings in the draft, right? Like we keep winning and we're just moving further and further down. Before the Washington game, we were potentially number 3 or 4. After the Washington game, we were at 5. Now we're at 6 or 7. And we have games coming up against the Packers, Saints, Rams, twice against the Eagles, which again, we know that's going to be a sweep. We're fine with that. Um, but to potentially beat the Packers, which is an okay middle of the pack team, Saints, same thing, and Rams, same thing. If we win, hell, even 2 of those 3 games, we're looking at being in the top 20 when it comes to the draft. And as a Giants fan, in the situation we're in where, they're saying Daniel Jones should be back by the beginning of the season. They're not renewing Tyrod. His contract is over, and Joe Shane had his press conference yesterday, and it was very obvious that we're not renewing Tyrod. We have to find some depth in the quarterback, when it comes to getting a quarterback in the draft, or in free agency. And, I do think Josh Dobbs could be a good idea to have as a backup QB. What DeVito looks like by the end of the season, who knows? Especially with his health and as many sacks as he's getting more sacks than Daniel Jones was. But that's also because he doesn't have the body type or the stature to move like Daniel. But I like the fact that we won too, but I'm like, I don't need us to tank, but I don't need us to win. Because the lower we get in the draft, I think the harder it may be for us to get, you know, we're kind of in that Bo Nix now area. And, we're definitely not in the running for Caleb Williams or some of the other top guys.
All you need is, I mean, this is literally probably one of the best quarterback classes
Yes.
uh in recent memory. And so, but I'm saying that from the strength from top to bottom. Getting a
Yes.
Bo Nix will be just fine. You need somebody that's going to sling the ball. But I think also the Giants are not, I don't believe that the Giants are far away. I just think they need
Oh,
somebody.
no.
They need somebody that's going to make them, that they can believe in, you know,
I
because
agree. But here's the thing that I have to add to it is that we're in a division now where you have Jalen Hurts, who's young and getting better. we're in a division that has Dak Prescott where he just wins a bunch of games. And since Daniel Jones has been the starting quarterback, has not won a game against Dallas. Like when they were telling those stats, I was like, that can't be right. And I thought to myself, I was like, holy shit. The last time the Giants won a game against Dallas, Eli Manning was our quarterback. And I'm not talking about Eli Manning's, maybe a few years before he retired. No, like Eli Manning's last season was the last time we beat Dallas, which is, I would say in our division, when you have division rivals, nobody wants to be the one you're going to get the easy win, right? Like, I don't want to be Washington where it's like, oh, Dallas is coming to town, we're going to lose. Philly's coming to town, we're going to lose. Like, that's not a fun place to be. And the fact that even in the bad years, Daniel Jones has not been able to beat Dallas. Like, that's not where we need to be anymore. And so, though I do agree with you, it's a strong draft class, we really have to make the right choice because there's still a few more years left with Dak in Dallas. I do believe he's still got some more years left, but Jalen's got a very long runway.
Yeah, but I just think, I think that's just it's acceptable what you're saying, but that's still the harsh critic, the harsh words of a critical fan.
Very critical.
From the standpoint that, yeah, y'all want Daniel Jones to give you more. With what? Okay, you got Saquon Barkley. What all pro?
Again, I didn't say all pro.
I'm saying it's an offset though. DeAndre Swift is lethal because if you don't respect him, I'm just going to throw it to the others. I'm going to throw the ball to the other Smith. Or if Smith is covered, then I'm going to give the ball to Dallas Goedert. Or I'm going to give the ball to A.J. Brown. Like, they're household names. The Giants have to go and become the Giants of old, right?
Absolutely. And I think, and we have some pieces through this past draft that we are getting there. I think Jalen Hyatt has done a really great job. I think he's definitely proven to be a draft pick that we got that has really worked out. I think the yards he's been able to get in these last two games, he's still small, he's still thinner of a receiver, but he's a rookie. The way he's been able to make those sideline toe drags, to me, that's what I want to see. That to me is like, oh, okay, this kid has got it, right? To me, Jalen Hyatt more than likely will be the wide receiver one. So like you said, as a Giants fan in the draft and however many draft picks we have in the positioning, is going to be very critical to get those pieces. Like, I think Jalen Hyatt's a good
What do you
buy.
say? They say, the projections right now say the Giants, with their positioning, the Giants need a receiver, a number one.
Absolutely. Like Marvin Harris Jr., if he's available,
and a cornerback. Y'all need a shutdown corner and y'all need a receiver. And I think we
need a running back too. We need a back, but I would like for us to get a bigger back.
Listen, Saquon. All right, y'all keep.
I'm not saying not Saquon. I'm not saying that, but I think our tight ends showed potential, but have failed to really deliver. And I think in a more offensive league, and again, like you just said, when you're looking at your just divisional opponents, we have to be able to have multiple weapons. That's why I've said even this year and why I think, especially in this league now, if you are a team that's one-dimensional or a run team, a run only, that doesn't work in this league anymore. And in our division alone, you have to have multiple weapons, and we don't. And we technically really haven't, but I think we're building that. Yeah. I think we're building it, and I think Hyatt was a good head.
You can give some, and you can give some, trade some of your picks off. Do what you got to do if you think this year is your year. A lot of this is playing chess, it's flipping a coin. Some things paying out for some things don't for others.
I think we're going to need about two more. And the reason why I say two is because like you said, it's building. And in my opinion, when I look at Dallas, Philly, and San Francisco, they didn't get good overnight. They're not Houston, where Houston had like 10 draft picks, they got the right QB, they're in the right division, and all those other things kind of work in their favor, but they also had a lot to work with. We're in a division where it's like we're talking long haul, right? And based off of the history of these franchises, we're trying to get back to getting another Lombardi. We remember, right? Like you were with me when we were in college in the Union when my Giants won with Eli the first time. Like
Mhm.
I
I mean,
remember that
yeah,
vividly. Like you said, you remember your Super Bowl vividly. You want to see that. So
yeah.
I feel you, but what the Giants have to do in like I said, with these wins, specifically with that first round, seeing us kind of slowly move down the draft board doesn't give me a whole lot of hope.
Right.
But what I've seen from the picks that we had last year, specifically Deontay Banks, who's our corner, and or is our rookie corner, and Jalen Hyatt, who's our rookie receiver. I'm all in on Daboll and Joe Shane, and I definitely think just seeing. And another thing that I want to say about the Giants that I don't think I said last week, um, I'm sticking beside Joe Shane and Brian Daboll because what Brian Daboll has been able to do in 2 games with Tommy DeVito is nothing short of impressive. And yes, we played a bad Washington and we played a bad New England. But the fact of the matter is that both of those QBs, Howell and Zappy and what's the because Zappy came in towards the end, but you said
Mac,
who?
Mac
Yes,
Jones.
Mac Jones. Those quarterbacks have been around for a while, specifically in New England. And even though they're a bad team, we're a bad team as well. We were able to come out with the win and play really, really tough with a third string QB who was on the practice squad literally 4 weeks, like a month ago, he was on the practice squad. Brian Daboll has shown me the reason why he got coach of the year and how the Giants are actually in very good hands. Injuries happen, that's unfortunate, but when
Well,
you're
y'all might just wait. It's funny you said it about Mac Jones. You might just wait for the next Alabama QB. Alabama QBs are kind of like pop rock stars, kind of like shake it and let it go. I mean, you got Tua who panned out, of course, Jalen panned out, but Mac Jones has not panned out, and neither
no, he's bad. He is
neither
I
has
knew he was bad, but he's really bad.
and neither has Bryce. Bryce just may be too small. This new boy, Jalen Milroe, he's special, especially if you didn't see that. Did you see? I don't know if you saw that game.
I
That was
haven't.
the game of that was literally the game of, you could argue, the week or even the season so far. Auburn had Alabama dead to rights. They messed up. They had penalties. Whatever. It came down to um, Jalen Milroe has got like 30, not even 30 seconds. I think he had like 15 seconds on the clock. It is fourth down and goal. They are maybe at the 25, 30. He throws a literal dart back of the end zone. Receiver catches it 1 foot down. I mean, it was like, oh my gosh. But, just to say there's options, there's options. But I
Yeah,
don't.
and like you said, I mean, look at some of the better quarterbacks. I'm not saying we need to pick at number one, right? I'm definitely not saying that. But I do I again, and I very much so trust Brian Daboll, Joe Shane, and actually they have a young guy. I think his last name is Smith, who's the assistant GM, um, who is under Joe Shane's tutelage. I trust them. From what I have seen, despite our record, right? Like despite the record and despite the injuries and everything, what I have seen Brian Daboll do with the team last year and the nothingness we had this year that had a lot of promise and just dissolved in front of our face with so many unfortunate injuries, and what he has done with a third string practice squad QB in 2 games, like
No,
I
yeah.
trust him. I am when people say you got to trust the process, I am all in, and I'm on many different Giants fan boards, and I see a lot of it, but I'm like, look, if there is anything that any fan can say, and I can be as critical on my Giants as in the good and the bad, is that I'm absolutely trusting Brian Daboll and Joe Shane and what they're doing. But I want to go to the next one, which is playoff picture. Now, this is what the playoff standings look like. And like you said, we know your Philadelphia Eagles are currently perched, pun intended, in first place. But this is if the Super Bowl, I'm sorry, if playoffs started today, this is what it would look like. And to be honest, based off of who's in the hunt, and I because we're getting close to playoffs, I'm looking at not just who's in the hunt, but what their schedule looks like. And if this looks probably close to what we may end up seeing, this is kind of it. I think the shifts would literally be it's hard to say Philly and Dallas only because Dallas is stretch and Philly's stretch. And like you said, like we said earlier, Philly beating San Francisco really does kind of lock them in that one spot. It allows them to be a little bit more secure in it. And if they beat Dallas, then they just are going to be the one spot. If they beat San Francisco and Dallas, they're the one spot, right? But we got Minnesota, and we know the South is somebody's got to go from the South. It's just gonna be who's the best worst team. What are your thoughts when you look at this playoff picture, and the accuracy on the NFC side? That was a
So,
big sigh.
nah, NFC side, I think, looks a bit. It looks, I mean, for the most part, I think it does look accurate. I'll say Atlanta. I don't think New Orleans can turn it around, but they might. So, that's a swap. The Lions, yeah. Seahawks, yeah. Yeah, the Vikings, I think the Vikings are doing what they need to do to hang around and to also be relevant in that conversation. So I don't have a tremendous issue with it. What I'll say is this: what is interesting is that right now the league, we're in a very weird spot numerically in the league. Like half of the league have the same records.
Yeah.
So I need
Yeah,
some.
but it's also more on the AFC side.
It
Like I
is, but
feel
we need some more. We just need some more separation. I do believe that these teams right here, Philly, Dallas, San Francisco, the Lions. I mean, I do think that those are the four best teams coming out of the East and or coming out of the NFC. I do think that the Vikings play tough, and I do. The Seahawks have shown some stuff.
so
The,
here's the only thing I think is going to end up moving off of this is actually the Vikings. And I think LA might sneak in.
I thought about that, but
I think LA might
I
sneak in at that 7th spot.
I just need to see more because the Vikings have they got the will to win. They also have a pretty easy schedule. So
Yeah.
this is gonna play a factor, not how good you are. Like when we get into these later spots for playoff contention or playoff berth, it's gonna be more about can you win the games you need to, right? Now that AFC side,
Okay,
that
actually, I'm looking at LA's schedule. I'm gonna take that back. LA,
they
their
have
next game is well, they play the Browns, and like you said, the Browns has a really tough defense, but they also have the Ravens on here.
yeah, no, yeah, that's what
They
I'm
have
saying.
the Commanders who could play spoiler, and
They've
like
got
you said, it's
it,
the Saints, and they have the 49ers at their last game is the 49ers.
right,
So
right. Whereas the Vikings have already kind of went through their onslaught. Now on the
yeah.
AFC side, it is incorrect because I'm not on that bandwagon, but I know what I see. Uh let's ride. We'll make the playoffs. Um yeah, they're five and you look at their
Oh
division.
shoot, hold on. I'm looking at the Vikings. Yeah, you're right. They'll probably stay right there. Never mind.
Yeah.
I stricken what I just said. Okay, so you said the Broncos. Hold on, let me pull the Broncos schedule up because I'm like,
So the Broncos
I
are
mean, they are 6-5.
yeah, the Broncos are 6-5. There's only two other teams in second place with better records. The Bills, who are 6-6, that could change, and also the Steelers, who are 7-4. So by the time we're done, the Broncos will more than likely be a 10-win team. And part of that is look at the rest of their schedule. They play
Yeah.
Las Vegas, the Chargers, twice and New
They
England.
still they gotta play Houston too, and Houston's playing good. I'm not saying they're great,
Oh,
but
no,
Houston is playing good.
say it's right. So let's say they lose at Houston, and let's say Detroit beats them. They're 6-5 right now. If they lost those two, that's 6-7. But then 7, 8, 9, 10. That's a 10. They be 10-7. That's what I'm saying. If they will make the playoffs. They're on a 5-game winning streak. They've been destroyed. I'll be like,
Yeah.
I got more faith in Russell Wilson right now than I do Kenny Pickett. So people going to step off when you if you
You
telling
know,
me.
okay, so here's the thing. We knew coming in this season, the AFC was going to be tough because they just have so many good QBs, so many juggernauts, right? Like, we knew the AFC was going to be tough. Like you, I agree in a sense of where the standings are. I think Minshew and the Colts could stay, maybe that 6-7 spot. I think the Browns are going to fall out, right? I don't think the Browns are going to make it through. And same thing with with the Steelers. I don't know about the Steelers, right? Because they just fired their OC, they got the win, and it's Mike Tomlin. Um,
I'm gonna tell you, even
The
before
Bron
you
I
go
mean,
there,
yeah, the Broncos can the
Steelers
reason why I think the Broncos can eke in is because I absolutely know the Browns are gonna fall off. And not the Steelers, sorry, the Colts.
Steelers, the
You're
Colts.
right. They're kind of in those space. The Steelers, the Browns, and the Colts on here are teams that you're right
And if they
aren't far
don't,
ahead enough.
and if they don't, mark the words here, it will be the Texans,
Yes,
the
I think the Texans and the
Broncos,
Broncos
the
probably will.
Texans, the Broncos, and
Don't say nothing
because they
foolish.
no, because they never. Well, let me see. They never fail usually to turn it up in a weird way when it matters. Probably not. Nah, their record is just it's too much this year.
Wait, who are you gonna say?
So a team that just finds a way, but they're actually not good, unlike the Eagles, the Titans. They will find a way to win enough, just enough, and get luck.
No.
But this year they have a schedule.
I thought you was gonna say, oh, like the I thought you were gonna say the Chargers,
No.
the Titans who literally poo-pooed themselves towards the end of last season and allowed Trevor Lawrence and the Jags to get in. I thought you was gonna say the Chargers. Nah.
Here's the thing: if I had to pick somebody else outside of that, no, that pretty much seals it. I mean, the
The
top
Ti-
teams like
the tennis. Let me look at the Tennessee Titans schedule because I
no,
no.
their schedule knocks them out. But I
I'm
would
about to say yeah. No, their schedule that's not happening.
I would say the way they're going now. Let me look. Well, so,
The Chargers,
so
the
the only
Chargers.
I'm
Here's
gonna
the
tell
thing: the Chargers could eke their way in only because they have the Patriots next. They should absolutely beat the Patriots. They have the Raiders as well. Now they have the Broncos. They'll probably lose that. They got the Bills, who absolutely again their trajectory for as far as the Bills, they have to continue to win. And they play a Broncos again. Then the last game is the Chiefs, which I don't see them beating the Chiefs, but they probably could eke out a win against the Chiefs because according to where the Chiefs are, they may not be playing again their starters. Like I get how the NFL made the end of the season where a lot of those are divisional games and they should matter. There are certain teams that are just that good where, I think the Chiefs, the Jags, I think Baltimore, Eagles, Dallas, San Francisco, even though they're playing divisional games at the very end, they probably will have stuff clinched so far and win or loss, it won't determine any difference in positioning. That those are teams that probably won't even be having their starters play.
I'm gonna
I
say
don't know.
I'm gonna
I
say
would say the Chargers could eke in before Tennessee for
so
sure.
the problem is now because we've added more games to the overall season, you're gonna pretty much have to win 10 games to get in.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
and that's what just honestly pushes a number of people out. Because I was like, if things go as planned, I could see the Giants, but you wouldn't make 10 games. You'd be 8-8. And that
Yeah.
just won't cut it. Because, in the past, we had folks making the playoffs. It was like 9-8. It's like, what?
Yeah. I mean, think about it. Last year, the Bucks made the playoffs. They were 8-9. We made it 9-8-1, and we got in because of the win over Washington. And again, by the end of the season,
Right.
a lot of
But
other positioning was locked up. So we were able to eke in,
and that's
even
why
with the loss of Philly.
and that's why for us, so you really don't have to win 10 games, but that's why for us,
No, you kind of do, because like I said, the Giants we made
well,
it in,
technically, you remember,
unless you're in the South, the NFC South.
well, I was about to say, technically,
Don't
the,
have to
the
get there.
Eagles, like the Eagles, we maintain a very strict, understood policy. All you got to do technically is win 6 games, and you are guaranteed to go to the playoffs. You beat the Cowboys twice, the Giants twice, and the Redskins twice. Because all division winners automatically go. You
Right,
lose every other game.
right.
So, in theory, but it just usually doesn't play out like that. But I think with this up here, I think is okay for now. This is literally a depiction of now because of where we are and
Yeah.
the way schedules are going. Projections like this, literally, like we get on here next week, this will be different. Just because,
Yeah, but I think there's more accuracy on the NFC side than the AFC side. I think
in terms of the
because again, we still
team,
don't have the Bills on the AFC side, right? They're still on the outside looking in,
oh,
but
they'll
they
be
also have to. They still have that they still have the opportunity to play spoiler to. I mean, it could be several different things, right? Like the Bills. I'm not yet counting the Bills out. But it's gonna be a very tough hill for the Bills specifically. Well, the Bills got the Chiefs next, the Cowboys, the Chargers, the Patriots, and the Dolphins. So the Bills in their 5-game stretch, eh, they kind of have to go like 4-1. Like they have to go 4-1, and I personally won't count Josh Allen out. And again, because of the other teams in the AFC, like the Steelers, who I don't believe in, the Browns, I
but
think, who
there's
are
not
very
a
high up because they
but
did well
there's not
early.
enough. Yeah, but there's not enough. There's not enough. We're not focusing enough on the overall metrics. So, for instance, prime example,
Right. I agree.
Miami is not. Miami's not probably Buffalo over Miami. And then somebody says, "Well, Miami's 8-3." Yes, they are. Look at their
Right.
last 6 games.
Yep.
Washington, okay, they win. Tennessee, okay, maybe
They gotta play Dallas.
they got to play Dallas, Baltimore, Buffalo straight.
Yep.
So
Yep.
if Buffalo,
Their
we,
their their next 3 games are going to be on the easier side, but
right,
their last 3 are going to be tough.
last
Like they have to go lights out technically
right,
with the next 3.
but
Yeah,
also
there's parity in the AFC side
it
for sure.
is. But I think that parity is all throughout in the sense that, and the reason why I said it's not going to be that way because we're looking at the games that we're already just counting that certain teams won't win. But you got to win the games that you're supposed to win. And in the
Yep.
NFL, half the time that doesn't happen. So now Miami has to win all 3 of those games because their
Yep.
last 3 games, we don't even give them the benefit of the doubt that they're going to
Yep.
win. So if the Jets sneak one, or if someone else sneaks one, now you're no longer coming in with those 3 games. You're coming in with 2, and then you lose 3 straight. So this is why I'm like,
But I feel like on the AFC side also to add on to what you're saying with that parity is the scoreboard watching. There's going to be much more scoreboard watching on the AFC side because like you said, if I'm a Dolphins player, if I'm Tyreek Hill and all them and I'm like, okay, yeah, we won, but hold on, what did everybody else do? Right? Cuz
yeah,
any given win or loss
yeah,
it's going to show some type of parity in where you are specifically down, especially like you said with those games down the stretch. Whereas I feel like on the NFC side, there's not going to be, I don't think there's going to be as much parity, right? Like no one from the NFC South is going to come out of there. Like the Saints aren't going to all of a sudden shock the world and make it into the playoffs. Like I think whatever team leads the South is all we're going to get out of them, right? I think even in the North, I personally don't see it for the Vikings this year. I don't think there's as much parity with them in their stretch. And same thing with Seattle. Whereas, like I said, I think the AFC, this is going to change every week. It's going to change. All it's going to take is a
Well,
Baltimore loss,
I
and this
mean,
looks different. A Buffalo win, and this looks different.
well, I tell you, yes, because off the rip, the Ravens won't be sitting there. The
You
Chiefs,
don't think so?
once again, see, this is how I be telling folks. Okay,
Okay, I'm
no,
not
no, no, no.
denying it.
Go pull up the schedule.
I got this. I got the
Look at the,
shed.
no. Go to the Chiefs schedule.
I am. Hold on. Let me
Chiefs,
tell.
the
Let's.
Chiefs.
Okay.
The last 6 games for the Chiefs are the Bills.
Hold on. Okay, so we got the Chiefs.
Yeah, yeah.
They got the Packers, the Bills, Patriots, Raiders, Bengals, Chargers.
Okay, you
Jesus
still you
Christ. Yeah,
still want
you're
it
right.
right? Okay, now go
Jesus
look at who the
Christ.
Ravens got to play.
Ay, ay, ay. Let's
Not
see. Ravens. You're right. But see, but like I said, that's what I said. The Chiefs and the Eagles. Let's just keep it a buck. If we're being very objective, they both literally can lock their season up, their playoffs up, like in the next 2 weeks.
I know.
Like
That's what
it
I'm saying.
really is
The
that.
Ravens have a tremendously tough schedule.
Yeah, the Ravens do, because I mean they got LA, they got the Jags.
All that.
That's tough. That's
All that.
that's a conference game. You got the 49ers, again, tough. And then you got the Dolphins and the Steelers, who, the Dolphins are for sure going to be playing for a playoff, and the Steelers could be playing spoiler. Well,
I'm saying. So you're looking at the Chiefs, and they're looking at
the
we
Chiefs, their schedule is a little
play one.
easier.
Yeah, we play a little. We play one team that by the time we play them will have a winning record. They go play the Bills. Everybody else will probably have a losing
Yeah.
record by the time the Chiefs play them. And
But let's not act like the Chiefs are playing lights out either. Like they did against the Raiders this past week. Yes. But
they're
the
not.
Chiefs, their receiving core is garbage.
It is, but all they care about is, once you've won 2 Super Bowls in 3 years, you get the benefit of the doubt. They're like, look, I
Yeah.
just need to get to the game. If I gotta
Yeah.
go, travel. But
No, you're right. You're very much so right about that.
yeah, so we'll see.
All right. Well, yeah, I was gonna say we will see. Well, look, we can ease this on out of here. We are gonna talk about wrong one. Where's my thing at? Where's my yes, why isn't that showing? Oh, there it is. I had to take this one down. My bad. Next week. So my Giants are on a bye, thankfully. I don't have to watch games or hear games with like my butthole tight because I don't know how bad we're gonna lose. But Philly, look, y'all play San Francisco. Like I said, that's game of the week, 425. I know exactly where I'm gonna be because I expect this game to be good. I look at Philly and San Francisco, same way I looked at Dallas and San Francisco. I was like, oh yeah, this is gonna be a great game. You're talking about these two teams, specifically Dallas, who can't get past San Francisco. They've lost to San Francisco in some of the most embarrassing fashion, specifically their loss in the playoffs the past 2 years. And Dallas was going into that game as these big juggernauts and all this other stuff, and they just got, again, embarrassed. I was like, I don't know how you get embarrassed by a team 3 times and it just keeps getting worse. So that game was kind of a letdown, right? Like, again, I don't like blowouts. I want to see a good football game. I don't think this San Francisco Philly game is going to disappoint. But as a fan, what are your thoughts about this game?
I mean, it's another opportunity for us to put another win up. It's going to be a very tough game. But at the end of the day, I'm going back to what I told you before. Philly, we're like, hey, we deserve a rest. I mean, we're going to play. We're going to play hard. If we lose, to me, it means absolutely nothing. Because for us, this will be a signature win, another one that changes the conversation again. I think for us, though, just yearly, but just for everything that it means, 2 weeks from now is really the conversation about this is what it is. Because we can lose to San Francisco and it means nothing. Losing to Dallas means more. Because you know, but I think we'll see a very balanced game. I'm interested to see how both defenses attack high potent to the offenses. I'm very much interested to see what happens when Brock Purdy gets hit.
Oh,
Um,
Jesus. Well, we know what you guys did last year or earlier this year.
that's right. We don't have no problem. So I'm interested to see what I'm interested to see what happens as we get healthier. At the end of the day, look, it's always been true and it remains true. We haven't played our best ball yet because we haven't had everybody who has signed contracts and gets paid on the field. Like we're playing with in certain positions, we're playing next man up. They
Yeah.
are doing their job. And I think that when you think, one way I like to think about my Eagles is that, from tip to toe in totality, we have the best team in football. And people say, well, why? And I'm like, it's not the 10-1 record. It's the fact that, you know, when our first string, second string get hurt, we run somebody into the position and then they become important, right? Like most people, nobody knew who Reed Blankenship was a couple years ago, you
No,
know, but
not at
he,
all.
he graduated from my alma mater, MTSU, and now he plays for the Eagles, and he's a good safety, and when he plays nickel, so it's like, you know, we are taking people and making them, or we're taking people and we're able to bring out of them their best when it counts.
Yeah.
Um, People still think our DBs are shaky, but we're pulling up, interceptions. We're pulling things down. Bradbury's doing well. Big play Slay is still there. So we just like where we're at. Could you be better? Could we be better? Absolutely. Do we need to cut the turnovers down? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, I think it will be interesting seeing Bosa, seeing uh,
Chase Young.
Chase Young,
Yeah.
seeing honestly, forget them. We're most interested in seeing Javon because he leaves us, Javon Hargrave. He leaves us, goes right to San Francisco, thinking I don't know, it's gonna be better for him. So
And y'all had there was I want to say a defensive tackle. There was somebody who apparently is visiting or visited Dallas and is supposed to be visiting Philly. God, who was it? I saw it on Twitter today.
I know,
Um,
I know, we looking at. I know there's the linebacker from.
oh, is he a linebacker?
Yeah, you talking about
Oh, God, who was that?
you talking about Shaq Leonard.
Is that who I'm talking about?
Yeah, Shaq Leonard.
Yes, because
Yeah.
someone just yes, linebacker. Yes.
You talking about Shaq, yeah. And if we get him, because we just cut, apparently we just waived Barnett. So, the Eagles, look, we don't have no problem. We are an equal opportunity employer. Many people in America say that bullshit. We are an equal opportunity employer. We hired Mike Vick after his short stint in the penitentiary. We have no problem. We
Here, no, here's the thing. It's funny because the reason why I saw it on Twitter is because I had reposted it and I tagged Brian, who's a giant Cowboys fan, about it. Which was one thing I have to say I admire about good football teams is that they play to win, they make moves to win, and they're trying to do it now. When I look at you guys and I look at San Francisco, you see two franchises that have said, we're building this team and they know that their opportunity is now. Like, I don't think San Francisco has always thought it was now, right? Like, they're like, hey, we're going to get Trey Lance and we're going to move some pieces to get Trey Lance and we're going to get these guys around. But I think San Francisco's window truly opened last year. They were like, we have a team, we have a squad, we have the best coaches, we got the best players, we have our, we got Trey Lance, and then they went through Trey Lance, Jimmy Garoppolo, and Brock Purdy, and still made it to the NFC Championship game. And even then, was down to their fourth quarterback, and then he got instantly injured and had Christian McCaffrey in there trying to keep that game together, right? Like, San Francisco is doing everything they need to do to win. And even as good as San Francisco has been, they then get Chase Young, right? Like, they're like, we don't care. We're going all in. We're getting everyone we can as reasonably as we can, and we're trying to use this window of opportunity and cash in on it. And the same thing with Philly. Philly was like, look, we're going hard on defense. We're getting all these guys from Georgia in the draft. Like you said, even at trade deadlines and stuff, like Philly's making moves. And like you said, you got this linebacker who's coming in and y'all like, look, let's see what Shaq Leonard can do, right? Like
The 1 year, the 1 year
on
contract.
a 1 year deal, right?
So,
Like that's what LA did. And what did they get? A ring out of it. They was like, Odell, sure. They were like Von Miller, MVP, Super Bowl MVP. Hell yeah. They did what that's how, to me, that's another reason why, and not to continue to rag on Dallas, but that's another reason why I'm like, I will never truly believe in Dallas, because Dallas doesn't do a whole lot in the offseason or in drafts to win the Super Bowl or to win the big game now. Dallas just, they draft, they have who they have, injuries be damned. They're like, but we can still do it with what we got. We believe in it. Whereas all these other teams are like, draft or not, we're getting the best players that we can as we can without going over the cap. And we're trying to win a ring. And
it's a
that's
business.
why I still have you guys in San Francisco. I had San Francisco going all the way and winning. But after this Bills game, I was like, Philly is determined. Maybe that screensaver Jalen got is working. Like, my man is like, the last thing I look at is my phone in the confetti, but I'm going out here and winning. I want to go back there. And I want that confetti to be green and white,
Yeah, that's it. I mean, so, we'll see,
Yeah. And then we got Washington playing Miami, which again, I mean, that means next to nothing, especially with Washington now being in the cellar of the NFC East. And then Dallas is playing Seattle. I don't, if Dallas runs over Seattle, I would be kind of shocked. Again, Seattle, a team that is looking to stay alive in the playoffs, right? They don't have a whole lot of cushion as far as even just being in the playoffs at all. So I don't see Seattle playing or Dallas rolling over Seattle. Pete Carroll, who I still think is a really great coach, is getting every last ounce of juice out of Geno. And again, Seattle's always going to have a really good defense, and they got two of our better defensive players. So I think it'll be a good game. I don't foresee Dallas losing. I do think Dallas will probably win that game, but I don't think it's going to be just a rollover win, in my opinion.
Probably not, but for us, anything we can get up on Dallas, we'll take. I'm interested to see what Seattle does. They've been gaining some traction, but for this year and maybe for the foreseeable future in the NFL, if you want traction,
they're gonna have to get a new quarterback.
Well, but you have to beat somebody. And Dallas is somebody in the eyes of many, but also the record speaks to that. So
yeah. And like I said, right now I'm looking at Seattle. Seattle, every single game, right? They just lost 2 divisional games against LA and San Francisco. They got Dallas, San Francisco again, Philly, the Titans, the Steelers, and the Cardinals. So Seattle too is going through their gauntlet, and they really can't afford a 5-game losing streak, right? Losing to the Rams, the Niners, the Cowboys, the Niners again, and the Eagles. That means their season's done. You know what I'm saying? Like, they will not be making the playoffs with that. So I think Seattle is going to have to do their best to get a win out of Dallas, because again, out of the next 3 games, Dallas is technically their easier opponent. So, I think again, Dallas is now coming up against teams that are fighting for playoff wins. Seattle's not coming in thinking like, Dallas is really good, so if we lose to them, I mean, we still got a chance. Like, no, y'all are. They're 6-5. They can't. They don't have a lot of room to lose many more games.
Well, people are gonna play. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what I've said over the last few weeks, which is Dallas is going to be coming up against teams that they can't go in and be like, oh, Seattle's 6-5, we got this. No, Seattle's fighting for their life. Like that Tyrese gift. They fighting for their family. They fighting for their life. So, like I said, I don't see this as being an easy win for Dallas. I would be very shocked and surprised if Seattle just allows Dallas to just come in and roll over them. Because again, they still have to face the 49ers and the Eagles. So they're they're kind of they're the opposite of what you guys are, right? Like as far as bird teams, like you guys are kind of coming on the down side of the toughness of your schedule, whereas Seattle and many other teams are kind of going in an upward hill, specifically with them having Dallas, then San Francisco, and then you guys. So yeah, I mean, if I'm Seattle, y'all got to find a way in any kind of way to beat Dallas. And like you said, for you guys, it puts you in a much cushion, a little more cushion if Dallas loses to the Seahawks this Thursday, but we indeed shall see. Anything? Oh, sorry. Any last words you had for that one? I
No,
got some hot takes today. I'm on fire.
I'm good.
I'm on fire. Well, look, I appreciate you showing up, even though I thought I was going to be able to have my moment of doing this thing solo, but I do appreciate you coming, Torrin, and sharing. You want to share your social medias or anything you got going?
It's TL Gatson at yeah, TL Gatson is the handle. I don't, I'm still learning Instagram's crazy, huh?
Oh my
But
God,
yeah,
not Instagrams, not with
at
the name.
TL Gatson, there you go. That's it. I don't have a Twitter or X,
All
whatever.
right. Well, look, Torrin, we're gonna be watching this game on Sunday at 4:25. Like I said, my Giants are on a bye, so I'm literally being able to just sit back and enjoy football this Sunday. And again, I'm excited to see a really good game because in my eyes personally, I'm like, this is what we will more than likely see in the NFC Championship. So.
Hey, it should be an exciting one, and hopefully we'll come back and report we got another dub. So.
All right. Well, we shall see. Look, this is week 12. Let's talk football with Sha'Niece and friends. Though I thought it was going to start with just me today or be just me today, I did have my friend Torrin here as we talk football. Thank you all. Have a good one. Good night. Bye.